right? Mexicano azul, you would say it backwards, right? Yeah.
You know that my brain is
I
always in
understand.
Spanish,
Yeah,
so. And today we have Danny Thomas doing Ruiz with us. He's a retired police officer from the Tracy Department, Police Department, and he's also a teacher at St. Mary's High School and at Delta College. But he's also the author of the Blue Mexican, a book published in 2009. So thank you, Danny, for being here with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely.
And if we can start by you telling us, how did you get into the police department? Because I know you started as a clerk. So how did you eventually went to a cop, a sergeant, a detective? Walk us through that transition.
Like any other kid about my age, I was looking for a job. I was 18 years old, just out of high school, and my family wasn't really into college, you know, so either go to work or join the Army. I was drafted actually by Uncle Sam, I guess back in the 60s, but my condition, I had asthma as a kid, so they classified me 4F, which meant I wasn't going to be drafted, so I had to go to work. So I just found a job through Delta College at the time, got me a job at the police department, working part-time, going to school. And then I actually liked police work, I learned a lot. So when an opening came up to be what they call a dispatcher clerk, they dispatched to take in the calls, and Tracy was a small town. So I only had one dispatcher working each shift. So I got hired and went from a dispatcher to a patrolman at 22 years of age. I worked myself up to I worked juvenile with kids, juvenile policeman, eventually to a detective sergeant until I left sometime in 1980 something. I can't remember when. 86 I think it was I left, yeah. So that was my police career for 20 years in Tracy.
Now during those 20 years, what are some of the events or experiences that you like the most or that you remember the most?
Well, being a small town back then, you know, everybody almost knew everybody pretty much. So anytime you went to a call, whatever it might have been, you knew the people that were involved. So it helped knowing them because you could kind of quell calmly whatever situation was it because we knew each other. But I was during the time of the 60s and early 70s. It was real turbulent. You know, there's a lot of change going on culturally, socially, economically in America. And being part of the youth movement of the 60s and being an establishment as a policeman, I was kind of like between two different worlds of being young and being a kid, trying to have a good time, a young man working and enjoying my life, and then doing a job. They called for me to take some, you know, law enforcement action. So I was kind of torn between what I wanted to do. So I was a different generation from the old cops who were used to the old style way and not really talking to people and just arrest them. What they used to say back in the old days, you know, take names, kick butt and take no names, or something stupid like that, you know. So, but if you learn to talk to people and communicate with them, you find out you get a lot more cooperation. So I think in talking to people on their level, as a human being, I think I was much more successful in my job than having to fight all the time. I didn't want to know what a fighter, you know.
Now, you know, you're a Stockton resident, and as a retired police officer.
Right.
You mentioned that Tracy back then was going through some changes economically, politically, socially, and that's kind of what we're experiencing now in Stockton. How do you feel when you see all this crime going on, all the, you know, the crime rates, the homicides? I mean, you're still a cop, kind of, you know. So
you know,
how do you feel?
I'm really worried. I'm not paranoid, but I'm getting really worried because being an ex-cop, I read the crime stories every day in the newspaper because I want to know what's happening in my community because I have children still living in town here. They're grown up, of course, but they're still children. And to see the crime wave every single day, innocent people being murdered, babies being murdered, elderly women being killed, it's scary. And you figure, you know, what is going on here? What is happening? Why is it so terrible? It can't be just the economy. I think it's a loss of respect for life. You know, when I was growing up, we revered life, and we never fought. We never killed each other. We had little fights with our fists, but that was as far as it went. Nowadays, you get people shooting each other from hiding in a car and driving by and killing innocent people. No, it's terrifying. It really is. I don't know what the answer is. I think we have to go back to more basic home life of respecting each other and respecting life more importantly. That's what God, that's what God gave us life, and to just look at it like it's a video game, it's really sad, really sad.
So that would be your
scary.
advice to them, maybe the Stockton Police Department?
Well, to them, boy, they have a tough job. This is a tough town. It really is. I don't know. They need more policemen. I'm sure of that. You know, they need more. When I was a cop, we used to walk our beat. We'd get out of our patrol car and walk around and know the people, know the community. I don't know if they have a community policing anymore or not, you know, but they need to get out and know who the people they're serving are instead of always being in a police car 24 hours a day. You know, it's important to know the people. I don't know. I see there's a lot of turmoil within the city government, police department, fire department. You know, you got to kind of put an end to that before you can really focus on what your job is to serve Stockton, you know, to make it safer for all of us. You know, I'm sure you can't be too safe in the streets anymore.
No, trust me, I think that community feels that fear.
I know. Even me, I go out, you know, I'm careful. I'm always cautious of who's around. Maybe it is almost paranoid, but I'd rather be that way instead of not take a chance that somebody's going to come along and do something to me or my family. You know, I mean, it's just basic law of nature, basic survival, pretty much. And it's getting really sad. This town's really getting violent. It's got a bad reputation. I feel bad for it, but we brought it on ourselves. I mean, not us citizens, but the way the city's being run. It's just, it's almost laughable. It's sad, really. You know
well, I think
mean?
a lot of citizens will feel that same way, but let's talk a little bit about more happy things.
Sure.
Now,
I'd love to be happy.
You decided to go back to school.
Mm-hmm.
Is it once you retired from the police department, or when?
No, I was, I started college when I was young. I finished my degree for associate of arts degree in law enforcement at Delta. And I went to work as a policeman, and I always felt like I wasn't quite complete. And there was always something in my mind that I had to go back and get my bachelor's degree, always. But years go by, and you work, and you work, and years go by, and finally I realized I'm getting older. I better do it now. So I went back to school at the UOP and to get my degree, and eventually my master's degree in English literature. I fell in love with education.
Now, why English and literature?
When I was a kid, I grew up overseas in Italy, and we never had TV. We were always reading. Always our thing was to read. And I read some of the biggest novels you'd ever believe. Moby Dick was this thick, you know, Les Miserables, all those classics. I didn't know they were classics at the time. There was something to read. So I fell in love with reading and storytelling. And so when I got to the States, when I was in the 7th grade, all of a sudden we discovered TV, and you kind of lose part of reading. Even now, as an English teacher, it's difficult to get the kids to sit down and actually read for more than half an hour. Which times have changed so much as you got all this technology and phones and stuff. Right. They'd rather play than actually read. So, but I loved reading, so when I went to decided my major, I wanted communications and my undergraduate degree, and my master's degree was in English literature. So I just love it. And I love to talk about literature. I love to share it with my students, try to get them engaged, and to appreciate the art of storytelling through the written word. You know, it's great. It's an art form. You know what I mean?
I'm sure.
Do you like to read?
Yeah, I actually do like to read, but I'm sure there's a different role from you, from preventing crime in the streets to classrooms and teaching.
Oh yeah.
Such a
There's
different
quite
experience.
a difference. Absolutely.
Which one do you enjoy the most, or did you enjoy back then?
I think I enjoyed my time as a policeman. I really did. You know, I feel like I've helped a lot of people, and I made some changes in the right direction, and did some things that you guys got to do. But I think teaching is more rewarding because you're teaching the young, the youth, and you have a lot of influence over them. So you can kind of help shape some of their values now, the importance of life, and of being respectful, and of appreciating this entire universe of art, not just walking around text messaging about it all day long. There's more to life than that. You know what I mean? So, and the kids respond pretty well. So I'm really happy with that. So I get along with the kids, and I teach from freshmen in high school up through the college ranks, you know. So, and I got a good reputation with them, a good rapport with them, because I can communicate with them on their level.
Now, you talked about your literature background and your love for books. When did you decide to write this book?
You know, actually I wrote my novel, The Blue Mexican, years ago when I was still at UOP. And I put it on the back shelf. And I didn't, I tried to get it published then. It was very difficult to find a publisher, so I just put it away. Then something happened where I discovered a family secret, that the man whom I thought I was for 60 years, I wasn't the man at all. The man whom I thought was my father, who raised me, was actually my stepfather. And he's being of Irish descent. And my mother was full-blooded Mexican descent, so I thought I was half Irish and half Mexican. But when I found out this man was my stepfather, I decided to find my real father. And I found him living in Texas, Plano, just outside of Dallas, still alive, 80 years old, still working at that age. And then so we had a nice talk, and I realized he's full-blooded Mexican too. And I realized, well, I must make me a full-blooded Mexican. You know, I wish I would have known years earlier, but then when I finally found out who I was, I thought, you know, maybe it's time for me now to finish this book, to do some changes in it to kind of reflect the culture and some of the hard times that not only I experienced as a Mexican policeman, but the race itself during the 60s and 70s. Tracy was a big labor community, so you had a lot of farm workers working in the area, and the mistreatment that I saw them go through, the disrespect, even to this day, you still see it, you know, when you see how they're being bashed almost every day for stuff that happens ever since the 60s. Just people trying to find some work in this country. And to see them to be disrespected like that, it's really hurtful.
So that's where then the title of the book comes.
Right, The Blue Mexican, because it has a double meaning. The title, blue is the color of the uniform you wore during as a policeman, right? The color blue uniforms and being Mexican. And blue is also kind of like the mood, a somber mood of feeling blue because of things that you've had to witness and experience that were hurtful, not only to me, but to others of my particular culture. I've seen it firsthand. I've been the subject of prejudice and discrimination growing up. You know, so it's detailed in my novel about how I could put up with that stuff. And I'm not the only one. And a lot of people do that. And even kids today, I talk to them, and they have the same experiences, you know, and it hurts.
So if you can summarize for us the essence of the book, what would it be?
It would be mainly to, you have to embrace whatever life has given you and stand up for what you believe in, no matter what the odds are, no matter how hurtful it might be. If you believe that you're right, then by all means, go for it. You know, if you're rough some feathers along the way, if others get hurt by you, not intentionally, but you got to do what you feel is correct, no matter what anybody else says, not live up to somebody else's standards. You set your own, be respectful of people, and have them respect you. And I think that's the most important part of my book is a concept of respect. You know what I mean? For humanity, for our culture. And I think that's what's lacking in our society today. You can see it every day in the public schools, lack of respect, top public schools, lack of respect. And I think it's a cliche perhaps, but it's so true. I see it all the time. I think if people had more respect for one another, you know, we could stop some of this crazy violence. You know, it's just it's nonsensical. People are losing their lives so young. Oh, it hurts.
Now, Danny, how was it for you? You just mentioned earlier before the conversation that you were 60 when you found out who was your real father. Did you consider yourself Mexican growing up, though? Because you were half Irish and half Latino.
Well, let's put it this way. I celebrated St. Patrick's Day and Mexican Independence Day with equal, because I thought it was both, you know. But I knew I was different in my family, and I knew I was different from most people, so I consider myself, because I respected my mother more than anything else, as being more Mexican. But the true culture and the embracing of that culture didn't really hit me until I found out that I was 100%. Right. I wish I would have known that. Would it have been any different? I'm sure it would have, because I would have found out who my father was if I'd have known when I was 20 years old, how much that would have changed my life. It would have been huge, you know what I mean? Probably wouldn't have the family that I have now, the daughters I have now, but it's difficult to say, but I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of my heritage, and I embrace it now. You know?
How do you embrace your heritage?
Pardon me?
How do you embrace it now?
Well, my daughters, I teach them the pride of being Mexican, being able to say that you're Mexican. I was kind of, I wasn't gonna say I wasn't ashamed of it as a kid, but I was kind of like not wanting to bring it out because I felt there was going to be some animosity toward me. So I had having the last name Dunn, which is Anglo. I figured that was pretty much what able to get me through. But now that I know my name is my baptism name is Ruiz, you know, I want to be called Danny Thomas Ruiz. That was my given my baptism name. Reflects my culture, my heritage. My daughters were raised with my last name of Dunn, and we've talked about it, you know, and they don't have any problem with it, but they were raised with that last name, so I don't want to put them through too many changes, although I wouldn't mind it at all.
You would like to, them to have that name.
Absolutely.
Now, walk us through, I know writing a book probably seems easy for a lot of people, but it's a long process of writing, editing, reviewing, and then doing it all over again. Walk us through that process of how many years it took you to actually complete the book, and how did you felt when you actually saw the end product?
So it took me about 5 years to finish the entire manuscript, which was really huge, and I would write whenever I had some time. When I decided to get serious about it, after I found out who I really was, I went back to it, revised it, changed some things, added some things. It took me about a year. And then trying to find a publisher was the most difficult part, because I never knew how much of a cutthroat world it really is out there in publishing company, you know. So I was able to get it published, and it did quite well locally, and some really good reviews locally as well. I haven't got time to market it as much as I'd like to because I'm still working full time. Maybe when I retire I might revise and try to market it more then. But with learning English, as I learned English with teaching English, you know, I had to go back and look very carefully to find out if everything was written the way it should be written, you know, proper format, proper English. That's painstaking, but it's worth it to turn out a good product. The thing what happened was, a funny thing happened. When I finished my novel, I submitted my manuscript to the publisher, and instead of printing my revised my manuscript, they printed the other one.
Oh, so
which was errors. Oh my God, what did you guys do to me?
Now, what are you currently working on? Are you planning on publishing new books?
I'm working on a new novel now. It's about my experiences at the UOP as a campus policeman, working with local law enforcement. It centers around a murder that happened here back in the 80s, where UOP alumni students were involved in the killing of a real estate man, and I think it was a miscarriage of justice as far as I'm concerned. From what I can learn from the case, I haven't done a lot of research on it yet, but I've talked to people who were involved in that case, and the two men who were convicted of the murder, rightfully so, they were life in prison, but the person who was behind it all got away. Not only got away, didn't catch him, he was not prosecuted or convicted, even though the evidence is overwhelming that he's the one who hired these two kids to commit this murder. So I think there's a lot of intrigue there and a lot of miscarriage. I'm really big into a miscarriage of justice. People are treated unfairly, you know what I mean? Or others who are given privileges because they have money. And you saw that with the O.J. Simpson case. And as far as I'm concerned, he killed him. There's no doubt about it, you know. But his money and his fame got him off. So I think that's injustice. Other people who can't afford that are going to be convicted. You know what I mean? So I want to get into the bottom to find out what really happened on that case. I think it's very interesting as a story. So I'm developing that right now.
So pretty soon we're going to hear from you again with a new book then.
By next summer, I'm looking at next
so
summer,
really
maybe by next spring. So hopefully it'll be done by then. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be a lot of humor. You know, it's kind of weird to say a murder case has some humor, but it's not the murder itself that has the humor. But it's kind of like the experience of working for the campus police and some of the things that happen on college campus, and then having to work with a serious murder case too. So you're kind of like you're in between two worlds again. You know what I mean? But that's kind of like my whole life has been between two worlds. So I'm kind of used to that kind of dichotomy.
Why in between two worlds?
Well, you know, as I said, when I'm growing up being a lover of youth music, of hippies, and trying to be a cop at the same time, you know, being Mexican, being an Anglo, being
and then
between
Irish
the
at
two,
the same time.
you're kind of in between both worlds trying to survive, you know. So it's different, but it's exciting, and I think it's worth writing and reading about. We'll see if anybody wants to read it or not. It's a different story.
Well,
But,
thank you, Danny, for being here with us today.
did I answer all your questions, or anything else
Yes,
you'd like to be?
I think you did answer all
aware?
my questions.
Oh, maybe probably too
And
much. I try to keep mouth gets going. It doesn't stop.
That's good.
We teach English. We
Well,
never
thank
stop
you.
talking. Thank you very much.
No,
Appreciate
thank
that.
you.
All
I
right.
try to, answer a kinds of questions because we only have a certain time.
Okay, I understand. Is that good?
But
All
thank
right.
you. You definitely have an
Absolutely.
interesting story behind you.
Yeah, it's